If you're in private equity or investment banking, assuming that your logo and deal sheet is going to write your way into Harvard, Stanford, or Wharton, that used to be closer to true, but unfortunately, it isn't anymore. Let's talk about why your candidate bucket is struggling right now and what you can do to stand out. Welcome back to MBA Monday. I'm Angela, the founder of MBA Protocol and a career and MBA coach for the last 18 years. I've worked with hundreds of people in private equity and investment banking and helped them get into amazing MBA programs that forwarded their goals. I even occasionally work directly with private equity firms to support their candidates in getting into the very best schools. Tonight, I'm preparing to talk to an audience of private equity associates, so I thought rather than keep my best advice for high finance applicants a secret behind closed doors, I'd share with you some of the most important thoughts I have for candidates coming from this incredibly strong but incredibly competitive MBA applicant bucket. And let me tell you, things have changed. In the early days, nearly every private equity applicant I worked with was successful in gaining admission to Harvard or Stanford or even both. But that was before the financial crash of 2008. And even if we look at the numbers 10 years ago, there was a much smaller number of private equity and investment banking professionals out there in the field. Let's just take the private equity industry. By some estimates, today there are between 40 and 60,000 private equity pre-MBA associates in the industry. Nearly 20 years ago, that number was between 12 and 14,000. So the number of potential MBA applicants coming from just private equity has multiplied by 5 in the last 20 years. That means there are 5 times more competitive MBA applicants in just the private equity bucket than there used to be. Investment banking has expanded and shrunk and expanded again over the years, but by some estimates, there are way more, possibly double the number of investment banking analysts who are eligible to apply to business school than there are private equity applicants. When you add together the fact that most private equity applicants have already done a stint in investment banking, and you see we've got a very large and very competitive pool of MBA applicants that you're competing against. It's important to remember that as you're applying to business school, you're not competing with absolutely everyone. You're only competing with applicants like you. In other words, other private equity associates and investment banking analysts. We can think of the way schools evaluate candidates as kind of a game of buckets. They've got a variety of buckets that they're looking at, and they need to take some candidates from each and every bucket. If you work in private equity or investment banking, you're in the finance bucket, and the finance bucket could make up as much as 20 to 30% of your MBA class. But then we've got the consulting bucket, we've got the industry bucket, we've got the NGO, nonprofit, and military bucket, and then we've got buckets ranging from niche industries to catch-all buckets that include all candidates from a variety of different backgrounds that don't neatly fit into the big ones. Different schools sort the buckets in different ways. But the important thing to understand is that you are competing with everyone else who's in the finance bucket, and it's a large bucket that is overflowing with talented, qualified candidates. What that means is there are way more qualified applicants that the school will have to reject than they are able to accept because of their need to admit a diverse class. That's why the bar for private equity and investment banking candidates is so high. Ironically, it's not because you're weak. You're an incredibly strong candidate, but there are so many of you that schools will have to make very difficult decisions in the admissions process. So all the conventional wisdom of what makes an MBA candidate differentiated doesn't apply to you. What differentiates you is no longer having a high GMAT or GRE score, having a high GPA from a really great school, having strong brand names on your resume, having great deal experience and success within your career, not even having strong leadership activities outside of work are what's going to differentiate you from all the other people in your candidate bucket. Because guess what? They all are strong on those dimensions as well. Having a brand name bank and a high GMAT and solid promotions puts you in the bucket. It doesn't get you to the top of the bucket. That's the starting line. It's table stakes. It's not how you win the day. All right, so you're probably asking, what does differentiate you now? I'm going to talk about 3 categories of candidacy aspects that can really help you shine and stand out from your competitive field. The first is real leadership and ownership. It's not just building the model. It's not just delivering great answers. It's not just being capable at quantitative analysis. It's a track record of showing leadership beyond your mandate. That can look like owning a process, or mentoring one or more teammates to success, or leading non-deal initiatives such as training or recruiting. As you're exploring your experiences, you want to look for places where you changed how the team or the firm operates, where you left things better than how you found them, where you stepped up and acted as a leader even though no one asked you to do so. The second way you can help differentiate yourself from this competitive field is to have non-cookie cutter goals. And by that I mean goals that you've really thought through and brought your unique values and passion to. So if you're looking to change out of investing and move into operating, or even becoming a founder, or becoming a strategist within a company or a consulting firm, or even a private equity firm, that's one way to show that you've really thought through how the MBA is going to help you reach the next level. But even if you plan to return to investing, to private equity, even if you plan to come back to the exact same firm that you currently work for, you need to show that you have a thoughtful plan for how you're going to elevate your leadership and become a unique voice in your field after graduating from business school. You need to have a specific reason for your post-MBA plan. You need to have an idea of what you actually want to build, and you need to have defined a specific type of impact that you'd like to have. Finally, the third way you can differentiate yourself is by showing your actual human dimensions. I know it's a cliche, but human beings truly are like snowflakes. No two people are exactly the same in their approach to life, in their worldview, and in their values. So your goal in the application, in the essays, the recommendation, to a lesser extent, the resume, and in the interviews, is to really show the multiple dimensions of who you are. You'll do that by highlighting community involvement that truly involves passion and isn't just resume frosting. You'll do it by showcasing your interests that show curiosity and humility and not just grinding. And you'll do it by telling stories that make an emotional connection with the reader and don't just tout another aspect of your resume. This last piece is truly our specialty at MBA Protocol. And in fact, if you're ready to join the MBA Momentum Club community, you can join me and a small group of applicants and all the MBA Protocol team. I hope you'll consider joining at this link on the screen and also down in the description below. Your job here is really to answer the question, why you? As opposed to the 50 nearly identical private equity and investment banking resumes that they are also evaluating. The last thing to consider, if you're coming from the huge high finance candidate bucket, is to think carefully about your school selection portfolio. If you're in private equity or investment banking, your school portfolio matters more than almost anyone else. A lot of you are going to be tempted to say Harvard, Stanford, Wharton, or bust, and you should absolutely aim high and apply to those schools. But if you've determined that an MBA is important to helping you reach your next step or a destined future step on your career path, then you have to consider a broader portfolio of schools where you're not just competing with the creme de la creme of your industry. So choose 1 or 2 reach schools one or two match schools, then you want to choose at least one school where your odds are meaningfully higher, but you'd actually be glad to go. Schools like Booth, Kellogg, and Columbia will support your goals, but the private equity bucket of applicants isn't quite as insane, especially if you're considering a career switch out of private equity or investment banking post MBA. Look carefully at school culture and determine which schools are going to set you up best to make the specific move you'd like to make. The bottom line is, if you're in private equity or investment banking and you're applying for business school, you are a strong candidate and you can still get in. You just can't be generic anymore. You have to do the hard work to figure out who you really are uniquely and what you're bringing to the class so that the school is making a decision on one person and not a profile. If you'd like to work with us directly on achieving your MBA dreams, you can request a call right here at mbaprotocol.com/MBA, and I will personally talk you through your profile, how you can identify your unique strengths and spikes, and how the MBA Protocol team can help you put forward your very best application so that you're as equipped as possible to stand out from the incredibly competitive high finance MBA applicant bucket. Before you go, leave me a comment and let me know what is the next industry I should address in my videos. We talked about high finance. There are a lot of other fields left. Which other one do you want to hear me talk about this year? I'll be right back here next week to help you achieve your MBA dreams, whatever background you're coming from. Multiplied by 5 has